slice of apple pie is $2.50 in Jamaica and $3 in the Bahamas. These are the pie rates of the Caribbean.
Oh my God. I was not prepared. I was expecting a math question that led to a joke.
Yep.
I am equally disappointed.
So let me see you reflect it, Bell. Let me see you reflect it, Bell. So let me see you reflect it, Bell. Better put it on, better put it on. Better put it on, better put it on. Better put it on, better put it on. So
well, welcome to episode 33 of the Reflective Belt. This is the first time in a very long time where you and I have hosted together.
Yeah, I've been avoiding it.
Yeah, because you really hate my...
I didn't want to hear any pirate jokes. But here we are.
Yes.
Both a little dumber, having had listened to it.
You all are welcome. I am here for it every single time. So yes, welcome to episode 33.
33!
I am Senior Airman Jordan Garner.
I am Staff Sergeant Levi Reynolds.
You forgot your name for a
No,
second.
I was going to come up with a fake name, but then I remembered this is an official thing.
All right, interesting news. What you got?
Okay, so as we've all heard, there was a couple shootings over the past weekend, depending on when you're listening to this. Could be farther out, but we probably all heard of the name Glenn Oakley. And I thought this would be a good thing to highlight because he is in our sister service. He's in the Army. I couldn't tell from the articles because they called him a private a couple of times and they called him a specialist. Like, I don't know what he was.
He's in the Army.
He's in the Army. But he was at Foot Locker near the Walmart, and that's when the shooting started. And he just immediately, his training kicked in, and he went and he came out and he said there's a bunch of unaccompanied children. And he was like, what would I want somebody to do if these are my kids? So one by one he started running them straight out of there. And they were freaking out, obviously. There's a shooting going on, and then this random guy just starts carrying them and like running out. And so he's like, I had to hold some of them pretty tight, but he got them all out of there and got them to safety. And I think that needs to be highlighted a lot.
Absolutely. I was just talking with a couple people in the office about this. It's just like, why isn't the news covering this? Like, the only way I've heard about it is off of Facebook. Then you get on, regular news and stuff like that, and it's just everything is so bad. And it's just like, but there's some good stuff that comes out of this stuff too.
Yeah, there's a couple of news outlets that I follow that they are legitimately, like, they're done saying the names of the shooters, and they're only going to say the names of people like this. And I've seen a couple, like specialists that decided that it's not going to matter if you say the shooter's names or not. But like, honestly, I don't want that in my brain anyway. I don't want to remember that name.
Yeah, right.
So I'll remember Glenn Oakley instead, and I've never learned the shooter in El Paso.
Yeah, me either. Yeah.
So yeah, we can pivot from that terrible news, and we can talk about the subject of today's show, which is
hurricane season,
which is much better news.
Yes,
just
to an extent.
No, it's just one bad thing to another, but let's this one you can prepare better for.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we are in hurricane season, but we are fast approaching the most severe months of hurricane season, which are September and October. So in episode 29, we spoke with Mr. Warner, and he talked to us a little bit about severe weather in general. Now we're going to focus a little bit more on the it's so weird saying it. Torry procedures, which is hurricane readiness and tornado readiness. A little more about hurricane than tornadoes, because you can prepare for hurricanes better, which you'll learn in the interview.
You got a little more time to prepare.
Yeah.
Like, it's over in the water, it's heading our way, and then a tornado, they're like, hey,
So now what do we do?
There's a tornado outside. Get in the bathtub.
Yep, exactly. So yes, we can just roll right into that interview right about now. Okay, so thanks, Mr. Warner, again for coming in and talk to us. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the Hurry and Torry situation. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Hurry and Torry procedures. So starting off, for those who do not know what Hurry and Torry means, can you explain that to us?
Sure. Hurry and Torry are essentially new readiness approaches that we developed in the severe weather readiness assessment process. What we wanted to do, since we can't mitigate the threat from severe weather, I mean, we can manage it, but we can't make it go away.
Right.
We really needed to come up with a way to buy time. And that's essentially what Hurry and Torry do for us. They help us buy time. When we're looking at severe weather, there's certain things that we know. We know generally when we're at the greatest risk. For example, we'll take hurricane season, or the Hurry concept that we're in now. We know that the peak hurricane season is September and October. Mm-hmm. So under the Hurry construct, there's things that we can start doing now to prepare for September and October. And by knocking some of this stuff out now and doing things that make the wing or the installation more prepared, we buy the commander time when the storms do start to form and do start to approach the base. It's not a replacement for the HURCON system. That system is still in effect, and the wings will still change the HURCON as storms get closer. But the concept with Hurry is that they'll knock out as much as they can as early as they can, again, just to buy that extra time.
Okay. And about the Torry side?
Torry is the same concept. It's just applicable more to our bases in the Midwest, and that would be tornado readiness. A little bit harder to deal with because tornadoes are really much more unpredictable. We see a hurricane coming 3 or 4 days in advance if we're lucky. So we have a lot of time to respond. A tornado could just pop up in the middle of the afternoon. But what we do know, looking at statistics and the historical data concerning severe weather, even in the Midwest, you can see patterns. And we know that bases like Offutt, they face an increased risk from tornadoes during certain times of the year. So in the same methodology, the wing there would take as many steps as they could before that time of year to make the tornado season, if you will, a little bit easier to deal with. For tornadoes, it may simply just be readiness exercises or training or updating checklists or just making sure that they know what they're going to do when bad things happen. Whereas with hurricanes, there's a lot more constructive, proactive things that we can do to get the base ready.
Gotcha. So it's more like if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Exactly. Right. Knocking out as much as you can beforehand is crucial. A good example for Hurry, we always have construction projects ongoing at our installations. And with a construction project, you generally have things laying around, whether it be plywood or lumber or tin or whatever. There's always things laying around. What Hurry suggests is that, hey, before you get to your severe weather readiness period, when you're most likely to be hit by bad weather, that's the kind of stuff you need to clean up. Because what we know is when the wind's blowing, 140 miles an hour, that plywood, those 2x4s, that tin, those tarps, they're all going flying down the flight line. And they're going to damage more, and they're going to cause us more problems, either with our aircraft or our facilities or even hurt somebody. So what Hurry says is clean that stuff up now, secure it now. Go out around the installation. If you have dead and diseased trees that will almost certainly fall down in a strong wind, we'll cut them down in August instead of waiting until they fall down and become a projectile during a hurricane. It's really those types of steps. Another example could be positioning equipment. You take JBLE, for example, or Langley, where our average above sea level is like 7 feet. So we know if a storm comes through here, we're going to flood. So in August, maybe the wing is looking at, okay, should we start moving some of our sensitive equipment or sensitive things away from the coastline? Should we pre-position it at Fort Eustis? Should we get it someplace safer? Those are steps that you would take when things are calm. That way, when you're in the last 72 hours before landfall, you're not trying to do all that stuff then.
Absolutely. So, excuse me, like we said before, it's been a rough few years weather-wise
Yes.
for the DOD.
Yes.
And of course, with that happening, our bosses decided, hey, we need to do something about this.
Absolutely.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, General Wegman decided to come up with a severe weather readiness action team. Right? Did I say that right?
Assessment team.
Assessment team, okay.
But it's even higher than that. He was directed. ACC was directed to form the team by the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. We were tasked to to take a look at severe weather and our readiness. How are we as a service postured for what is becoming an increasingly significant and more problematic problem or challenge for us. So it was a joint initiative. We invited all the sister services, and we had some representation. And our goal was to look across the board at, as an organization, are we doing everything we can possibly do to be ready for this crazy weather? Our final report ended up being about 251 pages. Many recommendations.
Absolutely.
And still being digested at the half level and still being implemented. A lot of the recommendations were extremely expensive, as you can imagine. A lot of our infrastructure was built many decades ago.
Right.
And not always, while we do a great job maintaining what we have, age is age, and when you start looking at 150 mile an hour wind or 130 mile an hour wind for a few hours, things fail.
Yeah.
And clearly we saw that challenge at Tyndall. So there's a lot of recommendations that try to address that very expensive problem, or how to build better hangars, or how to come up with new methods of protecting our aircraft, specifically aircraft we can't evacuate. But then there were also things that we came up with that were relatively cheap. Hurry and Torry being a good example,
right?
Which is really just a different approach, a different mindset, and you can implement that for free. So, and then everything in between. We have a lot of recommendations that are being implemented, and we went back and reported our findings to HAF back in March.
Okay, awesome. So, of course, we know with these things, it's always a process.
Yes,
and it's an ongoing thing. So, can you tell me a little bit where are we now? From the time that we started to implement Hurry Torry procedures,
sure.
Where are we now, and what do you look for in the future?
So there is a HAF initiative on some of our recommendations, but we're Air Combat Command. We didn't want to wait,
right.
Nor should we.
Right.
So we began moving out right away. I mean, within days after briefing it at the Air Force level, we came home and came up with a plan on how we were going to get specifically our units in harm's way with regard to hurricanes ready for the 2019 season. We really haven't approached the tornado problem yet. We'll work with those bases later, but the short target that we needed to focus on was hurricane season.
Right.
So what we did right away, we developed an administrative message, if you will, out to all of our wings within 200 miles of the coastline, which ended up being 5 of our wings. And this message basically had them move out on Hurry and Torry. It gave them a list of recommendations that we thought they should look at and that they should take into consideration. We also collected some comm data. We identified a couple gaps with regard to command and control during severe weather, so we wanted to beef that system up. So we're working on that. The wings are moving out on doing what they can to get ready for the season based on the Hurry construct. And we're also working on some things here at the headquarters to make sure that when bad things happen, we're better postured to support the wings. We learned a lot during Hurricane Michael's situation and a lot during in helping Tyndall recover. We're capturing those lessons learned, blending it with the severe weather readiness assessment way ahead, and then coming up with new approach for how we handle everything at this level as well.
Okay, I know within the severe readiness, I'm going to mess it up. Within this severe weather readiness assessment team,
yes,
there were 3 leverages to
yes.
fight against those severe weather.
Our primary 3 levers when it comes to dealing with this, planning being the biggest one. One of the quotes that we used, plans are useless, but planning is everything. And President Eisenhower said that years ago. And the concept there is that we can write all this stuff down, and we have all these great detailed plans, but plans are inherently flawed because you write it when there is no emergency.
Right.
And when bad things happen, your plan starts to fall apart. But if we are working together, if we're talking to each other, if we're exercising together, if we're maintaining a close relationship with our wings, then that planning and those relationships will allow us to overcome whatever comes our way. So our focus has really been on that planning, communicating, working together, and we're making good progress there. The other one is posturing. And this one, again, hurricanes make it a little easy because we see them.
Right.
But how do we get the wings best postured, or how do we help the wing commander get his personnel and his installation best postured for the weather that they're going to face? Our initial message out to the wings started that process, or at least gave them some additional tools to consider. Some of the wings moved right out. Some of them felt that they didn't need to go in that direction. They had other plans that they liked better. That's fine. Nothing we sent out there was a go-do. It was, here's some options. But the key was at the end to make sure that we're postured for bad storms when they hit us. And then the last one was prioritizing things. And this is a big one for us, especially nowadays. And one of the things we discussed during the assessment was, years back we lost Homestead Air Force Base to Hurricane Andrew. And we lost a lot of aircraft, we lost a lot of equipment. Tragic in its own sense, but back then we were bigger, we had more assets, we had more aircraft, we could not stand to lose things, but the loss didn't hurt quite so much. Right. You don't necessarily have that luxury nowadays when you start talking about 5th gen aircraft or some of our critical missions. We have to do a better job prioritizing those and protecting those, and making sure that when those are threatened by severe weather, we're doing absolutely everything we can to protect them and ensure we still have redundancy, because we still have a DoD mission that we must do no matter what the weather's doing. Right. So we have to know where our weaknesses are, where our vulnerabilities are, and then adjust as necessary. So those are our 3 big levers, and that's what we're preaching still to the wings. And they got it, they know.
Okay, so you mentioned, making sure that we prioritize, especially with the 5th gen aircraft that we have now. So with that, like, how does this being prepared for severe weather, how does that affect our mission as a whole, and just like, of course, with pilots and their sorties and things like that?
One of the things that we were very conscious of, we didn't want to create a new readiness construct that overtasked the wings. The wings, they're already out there doing everything they're supposed to do. They're already busy. They're already stressed. So we didn't want to add a bunch of new stuff. And we didn't want to add duplication. They're going to do HURCON checklists. They're going to do all this stuff. We didn't want to add anything new there. Our belief or our effort was really focused on giving them these readiness tools that would, again, buy them time, which in the end should help them maintain the other readiness levels that they're committed to. If we can take some of the worry away with regard to severe weather, then they can focus on what they're supposed to be doing, sortie generation, and being ready to go to war. So we think where we're at is a happy medium. We don't believe we came up with requirements that ask too much. Our goal was really just to help them be better prepared, so they can focus on their job.
So where do you, I'll even put a timestamp, let's say, where do you see us as far as Torry procedures in about, I'll say 5 years? 5 years?
Ideally, if we can keep this going, and I believe we can, we will get this indoctrinated into our culture, because it really is it's a cultural thing. We need people to think this way. We need people to recognize what we identified quickly, and it sounds silly, but the weather is an adversary, just as lethal as any other adversary we're dealing with out there. So we need people to factor that into their planning at all levels. It's not just a weather plan, but your continuity plans and your emergency management plans, and all of these plans need to focus on what are we going to do when weather goes bad. So it's up to us to keep getting it into the system, keep getting it into the culture. And if we're successful, 5 years from now, a lot of what we're talking about will simply be second nature. Commanders at all levels will recognize, hey, we're moving into hurricane season. I should probably do X, Y, and Z. I should probably go over these checklists. I should probably have a commander's call and talk about readiness and disaster prep with my troops. We need that stuff just to become second nature, because without getting into causation, weather is seemingly getting worse, and the storms are getting more frequent. So we need to take this serious, and hopefully 5 years from now, this will just all be old hat. We'll have it down to a science.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that you wanted to, anything you wanted to add, anything that I did not touch on that you wanted to speak on?
No, I'm glad you didn't bring up Sharknado.
I thought about it, actually. I really did think about it. I was like, we talked about it before.
I got nothing on Sharknado. But we have a lot of tools and people at our disposal to help make this easier at the headquarters. So if commanders out there have questions, want to discuss this more, confused about certain aspects of the report, have a better idea, by all means, reach out to us, share it. We have the ability to take good ideas and recirculate them right back out to the command as quickly as we get them, and we're willing to do that. And it's going to take a team approach to prepare for the next Hurricane Michael and to get ready for what we have to do when those bad things happen. It's especially relevant for us here at Langley since we are right on the coast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for coming back and to talk to us a little more in depth, and always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, that was some valuable information about hurricane preparedness.
Yes.
If you have any more questions or just want to be better prepared, you can go over to acc.af.mil, and on the right side, it's like the third button down. It says Severe Weather Readiness. You can click on that, and there's a bunch of links on there on how to prepare from NOAA and other various sites, and then it has broke down all the HurCon conditions.
Hurricane conditions.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't make this stuff up.
I know. No, you're right.
HurCon 5 through 1, E and R and all that stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So
yes, this probably will not be the last time we hear about hurricane preparedness and severe weather. We're going to be talking about it a lot because it's a long season, and we just want to make sure that everyone is prepared for these things the best as possible, because the DoD has been struggling the last few years when it comes to severe weather. So we want to make sure we get that information out so that we're all prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the more positive news, episode 34 of the Reflective Belt will be in 2 weeks.
Well, actually, it might be next week. We have so much stuff that is time sensitive that we're upping it. Don't get used to it.
Yes.
We are still trying to keep the bi-weekly program going.
Which is why I said the way I said it.
Now it's going to be every week.
So that's the good news. You get to hear more from us more frequently on Thursday.
That could be bad news, but hey.
What?
You
here. Mean to tell me they don't like my stupid jokes?
Nobody likes your stupid jokes.
I like my stupid jokes.
All right, well, one person likes your stupid jokes.
Well, yes.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Yes.